remember I do that weirdly.
Yes, I say, I wrote no, and then I wrote one measure, and then I wrote it the whole time.
Sorry.
So, kind of process and of course, through the thing. So let's remind.
It's like that joke of that soprano who goes to sing with an orchestra and like on the second rehearsal, the conductor gives them all these notes about changing times and keys and all this stuff. She's like, I can't do that. And he's like, no, honey, you just sing it like you sang it yesterday.
Yes.
That is it.
I feel confident about that.
Yeah.
I don't know myself what my memory is that I brought 3 binders because we had that rehearsed on Friday at like 5:15 or 5:20. And I brought 2 binders with me. I brought the festival binder and the bar mitzvah binder. And I brought those binders with me, so I had 3 binders. But then I didn't need.
It's either going to be at your apartment or
I didn't need the bar mitzvah binder because I had everything to the festival binder and everything binder. So I took the bar mitzvah binder home and I left this one here.
Right.
So that was my memory. Leaving this one here on that day.
right. Just let me know if you don't and you want to check Pierpont. I'll give you the keys and the card on Saturday morning. I have got to take out some of the things from this pocket. It's a mess.
There are some things.
There are things from when I had to do this on Zoom on guitar during the pandemic. So I've got like, and I didn't have the prayer book, so I was printing stuff out off the web, off the, you know, the.
There are some things in the pockets.
It's just a fluke that I had a printer at my house.
There are some things in the pockets of my memory binders that you might want to.
Yeah. The institutional memory, because sometimes you get cantors who are not comfortable with certain styles of music, and then they just nix it, and I don't even know that it's part of the repertoire, you know. I bet she did. I would love to see what she did. Well, yeah, I could see her as being extra. But also, like, she's the kind of person that you'd be, like, using as a resource. Like, do you know a song for this? And she'd be like, I know 6, you know? Hello? Yeah. Are you too close? You can move. I just randomly put it there. We are a little squished. Yeah, go wherever you want. These I'm putting away into the shelf for Saturday. very challenging when you actually have to read the relationships. So we're there now. Right? You would have had to go, remember, It's the little things that are making me slowly insane. I was either going to go blow a gasket in the middle of the service, or I'll just spray these in right now.
You like our new space?
Welcome. How's college?
College is good.
Good to see you. You look very collegey. Hi. This is back for 4 days.
Yeah.
Laundry and eat food.
That's it. They like give us 2 days off of school and they call it a break. They go fall break. And I'm like, no.
No, it's not.
One more day than like Labor Day. Like that's it. But it's good. It's fine because I came yesterday, so it's a good amount of time. This is very weird. Why are there like 3 rows? It's kind of sad.
This entire fall season has been very challenging with so many levels.
Oh no.
It's okay, we did, but he's slowly moving very fast.
I feel like we need more chairs.
I don't know. If we do, just as concerned about the number of chairs.
To give you the opportunity to put a 4th row down. To give you that opportunity.
What if I want to like separate?
It gives you the opportunity to go get a chair and sit wherever you like.
Okay, I'm gonna put one by itself.
Yeah, feel free.
Yeah.
It's all good by me.
It's like all the people who are having timeouts during service.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
This is my prayer space.
Now,
This is your
am I
prayer
right that Vanessa said there were some wheelchair-bound people who
Yes.
were going to be joining us?
Doors crossed.
So we'll give it
Celine
another
has been-
few minutes before we get started, rather than having
I
people.
don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe.
I don't know because
Well, I know. You didn't know there was no synagogue? That we haven't been in the synagogue since June?
Yeah, no one told me that.
Oh, well, you haven't been paying attention, girl.
What do you mean? I haven't been here.
I've been talking about this.
You haven't? No, you haven't.
Oh, I have.
I have not heard anything.
Oh, that means you haven't been listening to me.
No, that means you don't tell me things. I haven't been here in 2 months.
clearly you've not been
Yeah,
communicating.
clearly.
The problem lies with you, search.
Oh, well, that's the sign up if you're a parent. That's, yep.
I've heard nothing about this.
Okay, well, go set up some chairs. Go set up some chairs.
She's in college now. She doesn't have to do anything. Actually, we have staff here. Let's staff it up.
Yeah.
I really like your son. It's great.
Oh, thank
I
you.
want to talk to you because in 1964 I was in Columbia, South Carolina, in the Army Reserves. So we can talk to you about that. That's
Oh.
part of your.
Yeah. So you
How do
were
you
at Piggy Park.
Yeah,
Did you eat at Piggy Park?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I
okay.
was at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, right outside Columbia.
I can only imagine.
64.
I'm going to go back to
Okay.
Saudi right here.
Hang on.
Space down on the central chair. That's where I will be.
Test. Oh, please hear us now. I'm going to give it another 2 minutes. Oh, Oh, please.
I was texting Andrew this morning. I suspect it was one of the secrets.
Did you check his phone?
But I know that smile.
Oh my God. I know nothing.
You're supposed to spy for me.
I know nothing. I see nothing.
What good are you if you can't spy for me?
Sorry. Shall we? Surely. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It really requires a psychological, spiritual, emotional shift to come to worship. It is one of those things that we do in the world, and I think this applies to the Jewish community and beyond, that is so different in some ways than everything else we do. And I have to say, after a lot of years, a few decades, of standing positionally next to a prayer leader and looking out at the kahal, at the congregation, one of the blessings a few doors over at B'nai Avraham is their prayer leader has his back, it's him, to the congregation, so they're not paying any attention to what people are doing in the pews. One of the downsides to modern spiritual worship is we've put the clergy or the prayer leaders up front looking at you, and there are pros and cons to that. One of them is that we've turned worship into something performative rather than participatory. So it used to be, I think, that people understood you were bringing your instrument to a jazz ensemble. Your instrument is, right, your voice. And whether or not you have a tune, you always have your voice. You have syllables and words to offer, and your presence is noted by offering up a few of those notes. But because we've turned the prayer leaders around and have us face in the direction of those worshiping, we think, oh, it's a performance. So it's something I've been noting over the course of the holidays. It's really great to be back together and in person. That's right. Even as pandemic, maybe God willing, is coming to an end, just being together. You know, I always say you could put, 10 Jews in a room. You wouldn't need to have services. They take up 2 or 3 hours just schmoozing and talking. But that being said, worshiping together requires a whole other set of skills which are about risk-taking. It's about risk-taking. It's about risking opening our mouths, making some noise, reciting some words that we did not craft. And all of that is risk-taking. It's a little bit, right? We've been cooped up, and dare I say, some of our social skills have atrophied. And so all of a sudden we come together. I don't know. I have friends. I do have friends who are performers, and they would argue I'm wrong because they would say there are more people singing along on songs during performances on Broadway than should be. So I'm probably wrong on that. But our goal in worship is not performative. Look, I love to stop singing, close my mouth, listen to the cantor. It's absolutely true. But if that's all we're doing, we're not actually engaging in the sacred worship, right, of gatherings. So this is just my opening reflection before we begin. We're coming out of the work week. We're about to kindle Shabbat lights, the last activity of that work week, and transition into Shabbat and coming together. And so what I hope Max is going to take away both tonight and tomorrow is that when he comes up here, he's not performing. That's not the goal. Performance is not the goal. He's leading. And leading requires a following. I know, people say leading Jews is like herding cats. I know, but the truth is we actually want you to lead us, Max. We are willing to give voice. We're willing to open ourselves up and to connect and participate. And that's what our Shabbat worship is about, the possibility of actually connecting with one another. And that means letting our guard down a little bit. And that means risking a little, I always tell people the worst sin you can commit in synagogue on a regular basis is telling someone next to you not to sing. That's terrible, right? I mean, there are people who, I'm like, oh, what a heart, chatati. That's mea culpa, right? Don't tell people, no, encourage people. If their tune is different than your tune, it's fine. It'll be harmonious in the heavens. So all of that is a way of reflecting on being present and gathering and honoring and trying to raise ourselves beyond simply attending something, becoming a little bit more and raising our spirits. We are going to open our Siddur. By the way, what's the greeting after Yom Kippur before Sukkot? Well, the easy answer is Shabbat Shalom because it's Shabbat. What else are we saying? We still can say Gemar Tov. You should be sealed for a good year. Gemar Tov, Gemar Chatima Tova. We should be sealed because the gates of repentance are considered still open. You know, like when you're shooting for that automatic closing door at the hospital? That's right, and it's sort of halfway open and closed, and you're doing the slide thing. So even though the door started to close on Yom Kippur at Ne'ilah, it's a very slow closing door. The gates of gates, right? So you can actually, if you go in sideways, you could probably get in through Shmini Atzeret. That's the rabbinic teaching. So in case you see people, and Shabbat Shalom, and we can keep saying Gemar Tov, you should be sealed for a good year, which is a nice wish to share with everyone. Come Sunday night, Monday, we'll wish people a joyous Sukkot, Freilich Sukkos, things like that. Okay, Max, let's invite you and your sisters and mom and dad up. Adam, Vanessa, Dahlia, Josie, to the candle table. We are on page 2. Ready? And you are going to light those candles. Watch the sleeves on the jacket. And you can Dahlia, hold it from that line, please. Okay. Light first. Lift up the whole thing.
Microphone. Oh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kichanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'chadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. That was very good job. Okay, don't leave the room because we'll be calling you back in a little while.
Oh, okay. I was like, okay.
read responsively. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. We take the journey of Kabbalat Shabbat, the Psalms that were arranged by the mystics to reflect the days of creation. L'chun Ranana, Psalm 95, on page 12.
L'chun Ranana, l'chun Ranana, l'chun Ranana, l'Adonai. L'chun Ranana, l'chun Ranana, l'chun Ranana, l'Adonai. Naria, Naria, l'tzui shenu nekadna fana b'toda. Naria, Naria, l'tzui shenu b'zmeiro Naria lo. L'chun Ranana, l'chun Ranana, l'chun Ranana, l'chun Ranana,
The words of Yismachu, page 13 at the bottom.
ישמחו השמיים, השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, תגל הארץ. ישמחו השמיים, השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, תגל הארץ. Yiram hayam, yiram hayam, yiram hayam, yiram hayam, yiram hayam,
In the midst of the flow of the Psalms that recreate the days of Maaseh V'Reishit, the days of creation, we have placed right before the Psalm to celebrate Shabbat this beautiful mystical hymn, pages 20 and 21, Lecha Dodi, that envisions Shabbat not only as sacred time, but embodied, personified, that loved one who returns each and every week and whose return we await.
חדודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. עליך דודי לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. שמע וזכור בדיבורך לשמיענו, בין המיוחד
spirit for the 9th stanza, turning toward the entryway to the sanctuary or toward our home, and we join together.
בואי ושלום, עתיר דבנה גם בשמחה ובצהלתו חמונה עם סגולה בואי חלה לחדודי לקלה פני שבת נקלה עליך דודי לקלה פני שבת נקלה.
Since we're standing here at Our Lady of Lebanon Social Hall, let me invite you first to wish Shabbat Shalom to those you've arrived with and greet them. And then I want you to take a moment, introduce yourself to someone standing in front of you, behind you, make a new acquaintance, learn their name, and wish them Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, stranger. We are on page 22, Psalm 92, and if you'd like to stay standing, you're welcome to, and if you'd like to have a seat for a very brief while, you're welcome to as well. Psalm 92, page 22.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי גיון בכינור, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, כי שימחתני אדוני בפועלך במעשה ידיך ארנן, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודות לאדוני
especially at this season of the year, I make this comment. There's a lot of please stand, please be seated. Originally in synagogues there were no seats, of course. We all stood. Services were briefer. I often think that the introduction of chairs and pews allowed us to get a longer service, but at the price of, right? Standing is intended to help us focus, which is why you hear me very often say, if you want to stay standing throughout, feel free. We have members of the congregation who actually do that. It's just easier to stay focused in your prayer. And for those of us whose lower backs or knees are in a particular state of affairs on a given day and weather pattern, if you can't get up or if the up and down is too much, that's fine too. These are customs intended to aid us, not intended to cause pain. So with that in mind, I will say for those who are desirous and able to arise in body and or spirit for the Reader's Kaddish, page 26, I invite you to do so. Reader's Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברי חילותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ובימיכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב יאמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולם מעלמיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן מעלמא ויאמרו amen.
The call to worship, Baruch Hu, page 28, that's east.
Baruch Hu et Adonai
To have a seat, certainly welcome to. We continue with the creation prayer in English on page 31 at the top. Together, praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. Join with the cantor, page 32, Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha ahavta Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu limadeta Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shofchenu ובקומנו נשיח בחוקך ונשמח בדברי תורתך לעולמנו לעולמים.
Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo.
אוהב עמו ישראל, שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
Max.
Okay. There it is. Okay, I check. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. וחיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בעם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתיכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Don't leave the sanctuary. We are at the top of page 39 in the English as we read together. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go it is eternally Egypt, but there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. The words of the Micha Mocha on page 40.
כי כמוך בא אלי עם אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, הוסיף אלה מלכותך, ראו בניך בוקר ים לפני משה ומרים, צליענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר, כי ברד אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
So one of the notes I often get, and I bet the cantor does too, is people say, why did you change the Micha Mocha melody? I love the melody we do. And I say this regularly, but I'll reiterate. The Mi Chamocha is a bellwether of what is coming. And so, that's the melody we use for waving lulav etrog at Hallel on Sukkot. In the same way that the melody we heard for Mi Chamocha during Rosh Hashanah, right? Can we do that? Can we do the melody for is the melodic pattern for Rosh Hashanah. So one of the things that the Mi Chamocha does is it allows us to announce, in the same way that the nigun at the beginning of services did, which was V'samachta b'chagecha, but we didn't sing the words, that we are coming up to Sukkot. And that's one of the beautiful things about worship is sometimes you announce worship if we went into the sanctuary next door of Our Lady of Lebanon, of course, you would have the beautiful stained glass, and the priests wear vestments and colors cued to the season. We don't have a color-coded vestment. There may be some synagogues that have special talitot for different holidays, but what we do is we color the music. And so there are different tunes and modalities associated as we come to different holy days. So that's for those also, especially those listening on the Zoom. If you're wondering why didn't we do my favorite Mi Chamocha? This week the Mi Chamocha was to tell you that Sukkot is coming up on Sunday night. We'll be here, by the way. We're at Hashkivenu on page 42.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'hamidenu shamreinu l'chayim. U'shmotzetenu u'voenu l'chayim l'shalom. Me'ata ve'ad olam. Baruch atah Adonai, Adonai, hapores sukat shalom, Adonai, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim, amen,
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. The words of Vishamru, Exodus 31, the top of page 44.
V'shameru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בריתו. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפל.
I invite you to rise in body and or spirit Tefillah, page 46.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu Velohei Avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Velohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Velohei Leah האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני. מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה, אתה גיבור לעולם ארוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We are on page 55. If you'd like to have a seat, you're welcome to. If it's your custom to remain standing, please do. We join together. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai mikadesh ha-Shabbat. Page 57 together. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer. Wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands, you are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, shotecha levadecha b'yira'ah na'avod. 59. Together, God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. The final of the 7 benedictions of the Tefillah on Shabbat, the prayer for shalom, for peace, in the evening on page 60, Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim leolam. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום, וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם.
ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום. You'll find the traditional text to begin the journey of silent prayer, page 62, some modern settings on 63, or whatever our own hearts now prompt.
רצון נמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך. אדוני צורי, אדוני צורי וגואלי וגואלי.
Shabbat Shalom. This Shabbat, as Max will tell us also tomorrow over at Plymouth, this Shabbat is called by the opening words of the weekly parashah, the Torah portion, Ha'azinu. Over literally translated, give ear. Don't give me your ear. Keep them on your heads. Speaking of ears, you're probably familiar with the old maxim. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen much and talk less. You probably also know a version of the proverb that goes like this: why do we have 2 eyes, 2 ears, and only 1 mouth? So that we might see more, listen more, and talk less. There's a theme. My grandmother, Aleha Sholom, used to make the point that we were designed so that we could close our mouths, but not our ears. I don't think I need to further explicate. Yes, you can do this, but we're designed such that our ears are always open, listening at least to God more, but at least to God is a mitzvah. It's not just a good deed, it's a commandment. The phrase, Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel, is commanded not once but 5 times in the book of Deuteronomy. Failing to listen, refusing to listen, is actually a sin, at least when the one we're not listening to is God. As we read in Leviticus 26, verse 21, and if you remain hostile toward me, and will not come to listen to me, well, I'll go on smiting you 7-fold for your sins. On the other hand, failing or even refusing to listen to another human being might be deemed merely a personal failing rather than an outright transgression. You're not listening to me. Right. The traditional Yom Kippur confessional should still be echoing in our memory from a few days ago, Vidui Rabbah, The Great Confessional, the Al-Chet list of sins, specifies the following body parts and their complicity in our sins. 1 listing for the sexual organs, 3 listings for the actions of our hands, 2 for the actions of our feet, 2 for the schemes of the heart, 1 for our brazen foreheads, 3 for our deceitful eyes, 3 for the front or back of our stubborn necks, but, I know you don't usually count, 8 sins for the various components of our mouths, including lips and tongue. Note that the sins of the mouth are more than twice all the other body parts and are divided among mouth, lip, and tongue. And with the exception of the final catch-all, the ears are conspicuously absent. Rav Simcha Weinberg associates the sin of refusing to listen to others with the sin of Zadnu. Zad, right, on the Yashamnu list. Zadnu, on the Yashamnu list, the Vidui Zuta, the short confessional. Zadnu, in translation, is the sin of willfulness. We sin deliberately, writes Rav Weinberg, when we refuse to listen to those who know more about something than we do. Or, as I might interpret, when we refuse to listen to someone who just may know something that we do not. Rav Weinberg's comments point to what I would describe as the double-sided nature of the sin of not listening. Just as we have 2 ears, the sin of not listening has 2 variations with connections in between. The simpler version of this sin is the one the vast majority of us, certainly myself, have struggled with throughout our lives. It is more of an al-chet, a failing, than an aveira, a serious transgression. Nevertheless, it is the source of a great deal of miscommunication and therefore of personal pain and suffering. These days, we Americans are far less accustomed to listening. Yes, I know we have those things we put in our ears, but I'm talking about something different than background noise. Words, indeed, have become a background hum, and carrying on a thoughtful conversation or a dialogue today is akin to talking with someone who is listening to their iPhone, earbuds still firmly ensconced, while trying to carry on a conversation. Right? We know what that's about. Maharat Sarah Hurwitz of the Hebrew Institute in Riverdale teaches that the Jewish New Year is a listening holiday. It stands in contrast to the other biblical festivals, Passover, Shavuot, Sukkot, when our ancestors made pilgrimage to the temple to fulfill the commandment to appear, be seen, right? To appear and be seen before God, which is the central act of observance of all those other holy days. In contrast, she writes, the fundamental principle of the Jewish New Year is listening, as demonstrated through the benediction we recited before the sounding of the shofar. Blessed are you, eternal our God, sovereign of the universe, who has sanctified us through commandments and commanded us to hear the sound of the shofar. Lishmoa kol shofar. The essence of the mitzvah of the shofar is not that we should blow the shofar. We have a few select people who do that for us. No, the essence of the mitzvah is that we should hear. We should really listen to the shofar, the sound that emanates from the ram's horn. The Talmud in Rosh Hashanah 27b teaches, if one blows a shofar into a pit, you have to think yourself, 2,000 years ago, they're sitting around and they're having these conversations. Well, what if someone blew a shofar into, today we would be, well, what if you blow a shofar in a closet? And what if you blew a shofar in the car, with the doors open or the doors closed? This was their notion of, right? So 2,000, if one blows a shofar into a pit, if the sound of the shofar can be heard, outside the pit, the mitzvah has been fulfilled. But if the sound of the echo is heard, not the actual sound, but just its echo, the mitzvah has not been fulfilled. One who blows but does not hear the sound of the shofar at all certainly does not fulfill their obligation. Hearing remnants, pieces, parts of the sounds is considered insufficient. You have to hear the whole, full thing. The echo is distant, far off. It is a distortion of the actual sound. Do you ever do that in your home? You're trying to hear one another from different rooms. You can hear each other, but what you're hearing is the echo. And so too with all the rest that we hear. We must not simply listen to the echoes of what others say to us, but rather, we are meant to hear and listen completely with our entire body and soul. That's Maharat Sarah teaching. Listening requires focusing attention beyond ourselves, focusing our attention on others, what they are saying. It is possible to hear an entire conversation and to have not listened at all. Listening requires attentiveness, and attentiveness requires of the listener a minimal level of empathy with the speaker. We have to empathize, we have to identify. When we listen rather than just hear, we must momentarily suspend judgment and personal involvement until we have heard the entire message. We can't shut down the moment there's something we don't like. How often, when we're supposedly listening to one another, are we already in the privacy of our thoughts debating or critiquing the person's words before they have even finished the first sentence, much less finished their entire sermon? Here, our failure to listen, our lack of attentiveness and empathy often morphs into the second version of the sin I mentioned, zadnu, the willful refusal to listen, dismissing or disregarding what we hear even as we are hearing it, and unwillingness to acknowledge the information we are hearing. I don't want to hear it. Don't talk to me. I don't want to hear it. This isn't just a failure to hear, it's really the opposite. It is the sin of dismissing what we have heard because we are unwilling, not unable, unwilling to understand. Listening in order to understand means receiving an accurate version of the message being sent. Listening in order to understand means seeking insight into the other person's point of view. Through listening, human beings are singularly able to exchange experiences with one another, which makes us different than all the other creatures. It is only after we have listened that we have understood the message that the other person is conveying that we are then free to respond. It's only at that point, at the point of understanding, that we are free to agree or disagree. Understanding is not the same thing as agreement, but we cannot really disagree if we refuse to understand one another. However much we protest, are we really interested in listening, in understanding a different point of view from our own? Zadnu. Part of the challenge is that today so many of us are over-accustomed, self-included, to hearing our own voices. Many of us earn our living by speaking. We are no longer shepherds, farmers, scribes, all of whom spent much of their days quietly listening. And I think this is part of the source of our unwillingness to listen, to empathize, to understand others, to give another person a fair hearing. We are not merely motor mouths, which we all know that term. We're also motor minds. We cannot shut off our own thoughts even when someone else is talking to us. We have become so accustomed to our internal monologue that we forget that others, they have words and ideas also. that we don't know everything, that we aren't always correct, and that there is value and virtue in listening, and not just to those with whom we agree, but especially to those with whom we may disagree. Like talk radio and talk television, many of us have a streaming tirade playing inside our head. Even as we purport to listen to the news, political candidates, our colleagues, friends, or family members, their words are being interrupted or overrun by our monologue. Our listening skills are atrophied. We have difficulty quieting our own thoughts to allow room for consideration of the words of others. Silence, quietude in our own minds has become difficult to achieve. So what might we do? The night after my Yom Kippur sermon, a few parents said, so what should we do? And I'm often very reluctant in my sermons, as you know, to tell you what to do. But what might we do? How might we quiet our own internal monologue and learn focused attentiveness and empathetic listening skills? Well, there are many things, but the medieval Kabbalists introduced a practice known as Tzom Shtika. Anyone? No? Tzom Shtika, Tanit Dibor, a fast of silence, a day of refraining from extraneous speech. During a Tzom Shtika, a Tanit Dibor, one voluntarily observes a prohibition of speaking on all mundane matters. If something can be conveyed with body language, rather than by spoken words, words are not uttered. The value of such a tzom, such a tanit, is on par with a fast from food and beverage. The motive, by the way, many of us have a very difficult time with fasting, with denying, right, food and beverage. This might be, for those who have that hard time, a consideration for those fast days. The motive is an expression of piety, a gesture of repentance, an attempt to cleanse oneself. Everyday chatter easily slips into gossip or slander. Focusing on prayer and study is a way to sanctify one's words, and silence is a way to quiet the murmur in our minds. The sheer quantity of verbiage which daily spews from our lips. When our kids were very little, Deb and I used to have a 10,000 word limit for the day. Now, they weren't keeping track, and neither were we, but we would get to a certain point that you used your words up. They didn't actually believe us, or they didn't actually believe that there should be a limit, but we would, you used your words up. The sheer quantity of verbiage which spews from our lips doesn't only diminish the value of our words, it also diminishes our ability to listen to the words and stories of one another. And I'm, by the way, a person who talks to himself when he's by himself, like many of us. My younger son doesn't like quiet and likes to fill the room with words. I think most of us today are like that. The notion of being a shepherd on the hill, quiet, listening for the sheep, what's going on. Listening takes place not just through the ears, but with all, writes Lama Surya Das, an American-born Buddhist meditation teacher. Sometimes the best way to prepare ourselves to hear in a new and better way is, in fact, to be still and silent. When we quiet our minds and our mouths, we find that we are better able to open our hearts. That helps us to be more sensitive and perceptive. Annually, our own words seem to accumulate like dental plaque, stuffing up our ears and minds so much that we are unable to listen. And there's no visit to the dentist to scrape it off. A Tzom Shtika, a Tanit Dibor, a fast of silence, might just be the kind of purgation, cleansing that we need. We might begin with but an hour of not talking, or 2, during which we commit to silencing our mouths, our own incessant internal dialogue, and listening. An hour or 2 each day, in which we rediscover the atrophied skills of attentive listening. Not all of us at the same hour, but distributed throughout this newly born year. Our goal is not to create silence in the world around us, but to create silence in the world within us. Here to better listen to the rest of God's creation and creatures. As Maharat Hurwitz commented, what is important here is to listen with complete intent. We must not hear the echoes of what others say to us, but rather we are meant to hear and listen completely, fully, with our entire body and soul. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. As always, I invite responses and comments and critiques. If you're sending me an email after Shabbat, otherwise it'll get stuck under the volume of all the junk email that comes in. We are going to turn to the prayer for healing, page 253. Debbie Friedman, Aleha HaSholom's setting of the Misha Beirach. We call to mind for healing and blessing on the Shabbat Eve, Lori Blum, Gloria Sancho, Jenny St. George, Kava Gittel Bat Frida, Yona Chaya Bat Miriam, Ruth Bat Binyamin Vechava, Steve Brown Inns, Yona Tevya, Ben Label Vegeta Henya, Renee Fishzone, Moshe Ben Leah, Nancy Lazar, Delroy Aline, Max Estroff, Heike Bat Freda, Chaim, Kim Petchek, Peggy Einhorn, Bruce Nygren, Eleanor Shapiro Nygren, Bela Rivka Bat Shmuel Pesach Esther, Susan Sonkin, David Stephen Cohen, Andrea Feller, Vlada Rusev, Nick Boyer, Eileen Dernfeld, Tom Walton, Chris Adam, Ruth Adam, Tim Weber, Ari Gilbert, Michelle Goldsmith, Richard Nicholson, Shani Sokolov, Donna Goldstein, Howard Shane, Bluma Fego Bat Chaya Zelda, Austin Merritt, John Klein, Yaakov Ben Moshe Cohen, Gilbert Young, and Lauren Brogini. If you have names you'd like to add on as well, I invite you to share names for those we're praying for healing and blessing, whether minor, modest, or major, as my hand comes across. We join together with the Misha Beirach. You'll find Debbie's setting on page 253.
Misha Beirach Avoteinu Mekor HaBaracha May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishe Beirach Imotenu Mekor HaBaracha Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. Page 258 and 259, prayers for our country and for the state of Israel. O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country be sound in body and spirit. Amen. Avinu Shabbat Shamayim Sur Yisrael V'Goalo. O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love, spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. We say, Amen. We are going to turn to our concluding prayers as we rise again in body and or spirit. Aleinu, page 283.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שהוא שם חלקנו לייחד את שמו, וגורלנו להמליך מלכותו, ואנחנו מודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרה השמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו, וגבי מרמים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום בהשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא לאלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
יש כוכבים שאורם מגיע ארצה, רק כאשר הם עצמם עבדו ואינם. There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we've loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. You'll find the words of the mourner's Kaddish on page 294. We call to mind these passings in our community in Shloshim. Jay Wertheimer, recalled by Sandy Wertheimer, Joseph Katz, recalled by Mark Katz, and Magdalena Cantor, recalled by Avi and Melis Bromberg. We also call to mind those whose yahrzeit falls at this season of the year. Hamilton Hertz, recalled by Michelle Levine. Leo Taft, recalled by my family. Irving Philip Marks, recalled by the synagogue community. Myra Brown, recalled by the synagogue community. Harvey Rubin, recalled by Elizabeth and Nanush Rubin. Fanny Spire, recalled by our family. Alan Moravsky, recalled by Shelley Goodman. Sherry Poland-Wolf, recalled by Benjamin Poland. Dr. Solomon Snyder, recalled by Renee Fishzone. Linda Schuring, recalled by Heidi Hoover. Erwin Isaacs, recalled by Michael Isaacs. Donald Adams, recalled by Sarah Steinberg. John Morris Davis, recalled by Jill Braver. Phyllis Akers, recalled by Andy Akers. Herbert Epstein, recalled by Lawrence Epstein. Mark Feinberg, recalled by Pamela Jenkins and Patricia Rosenblum. Ray Raskin. Clara Pemstein, recalled by Ellen Pemstein and the community. Abraham Mendelson, recalled by the synagogue community. Bernice Mailer, recalled by the synagogue community. Milton Horowitz, recalled by Sarah Horowitz. Joel Jaffe, recalled by Amy Jaffe Brown. Minna Berger, recalled by Andrew Berger. Marguerite Dutcher, recalled by Laurel Dutcher. Jesse Inns, recalled by Richard and Anita Inns. I think that's the entirety of the list. I hope it is. If I have inadvertently mispronounced any of these names, or if I have failed to share aloud the name of a loved one who you are reciting Kaddish for on this Shabbat Eve, please do share those names aloud as my hand comes across the congregation. Zecher Tzadik Livracha, may their memories be for blessing. We sanctify their names and memories, even as we sanctify God's name and pray for the coming of God's realm. The words of Kaddish Yatom, page 294. Page 294, we join together as a community. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, v'yalmad v'rach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'yizman kari v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal Shmei d'kudsha b'richu, Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, damiran bi'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlam rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Osei shalom v'imromav, hu ya'asei shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May the source of peace on high cause peace to descend upon us, all Israel, our entire world. Let us all say, Amen.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
Ve'imeru.
Amen.
Amen. It is my pleasure to invite you to be seated and ask Lauren Young, president of our congregation, to share this evening's announcements.
Shabbat Shalom. Tomorrow morning, Havara is here
Yes,
at 9:30, and we have Max's bar mitzvah. Downstairs, okay. And we have Max's bar mitzvah at Plymouth, which is so exciting. And I will be there with the Kiddush cup. October 16th is like a day filled with activity. In the morning, there's a little Tat Shabbat at the rabbi's house in his sukkah. From 2 to 4 p.m., we have a new member event at the rabbi's house in his sukkah. And then it's sipping in the sukkah that evening. So Rachel Schnall, who's in the back, actually has a sukkah to put up in her backyard. If anybody wants to help go do that, I've invited them to your house, Rachel. But I think there's 3 or 4 congregants. Please, check that out. It's so nice to be in people's sukkahs. And also one other very important thing also on October 16th, our Social Justice Committee is working on getting a bond. There's a referendum on the ballot this fall that apparently no one ever votes when we have these special ballots. And our Social Justice Committee is super involved in this one. It's about clean water and good environmental stuff. So there actually is a virtual meeting. There's information in here, but I got an email from them and I wanted to publicize it because it is really important. So I'm going to educate myself too. And I think those are all the, and we have tickets to go see Leopoldstadt on Broadway on November 6th. So if anybody's interested, you can sign up on the website for that. And we are trying to get all of the sermons and everything and the Jewish journeys online. We're working on it, okay? We're working on it. But in the meantime, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. And Max, I'm so excited to celebrate you tomorrow.
Thank you, Lauren. Max did a great job today. In fact, we were rehearsing here, and the rector of the church, that's Father Dominique Hanna, first came in, and then the bishop, Gregory Mansour, came in, and and Max was chanting Torah, pointing out Deuteronomy 32 in the original. It was really, so I have no worries about him doing a great job tomorrow. He already had already impressing the clergy here. A couple of things. First of all, we are still in the midst of holy days. We may be done with the days of awe, but we actually have a major, what used to be the most significant festival of the ancient calendar, Sukkot. Sukkot is 7-8 days. For some people, it's 8 or 9 days. And so we are going to be, the first night of Sukkot is Sunday. We will be right here at 6:30 p.m. And I just had the conversation with the father and the bishop, and we are hoping to have one. We have these portable, we have from last year these cloth Sukkot, very temporary kind of pop-up Sukkot, and I just got permission today for us to put them up on the gravel outside of the church just for the first day of Sukkot. So hopefully we'll get them up just before services Sunday night, and it will stay up through that same time Monday evening. That will afford us a chance to fulfill the mitzvah of being able to make some of our blessings in the sukkah. So if you come by Our Lady of Lebanon and you see there's a sukkah out there on the street, and that should not be a surprise. Our neighbors are really terrific. I do this every time, but I cannot understate how blessed we are in the synagogue community to have so many houses of worship that are so concerned about our well-being, so that we don't have, everyone just says, we'll make our house available, we'll make our house available, we'll make our house available, and indeed, they have been. And we are blessed to have that kind of relationship with the houses of worship in Brooklyn Heights. We absolutely will. We absolutely will. I should also make the point that, so Sunday night, Monday, that's the first day of Sukkot. We will be waving lulav and etrog, so if you come on out, you'll be able to wave lulav and etrog, which we do throughout Sukkot. And then at the end of Sukkot is Shmini Atzeret, which we also know as Simchat Torah, built on top of each other. And we will be, as we traditionally do, we observe roughly 28 to 29 hours of this day. Now in Israel, Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah are the same day. They're the 8th day of Sukkot. Here in the diaspora, conservative and Orthodox Jews make Shmini Atzeret day 8 and then Simchat Torah day 9. We split the difference. So here's what we do. Not this Sunday night, the following Sunday night is Erev Shmini Atzeret. We'll be here. Monday morning, Shmini Atzeret in Yizkor. So for people who are in the Ashkenazi custom of saying Yizkor 4 times a year, we do that Yom Kippur, Shmini Atzeret, 7th day Passover and Shavuos. So that'll be the next Yizkor. And then that evening, that Monday night, so that's a week from Columbus Day, we will have Simchat Torah, and hopefully we'll have a few Torah scrolls and be able to celebrate.
We should talk about that.
Yeah, we're gonna
figure that out.
We're gonna figure out exactly what we're doing, because we're not totally.
We're definitely ending the Torah and starting the Torah.
Yeah, we're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
So, and we are gonna be so grateful when we're back in our own building and know what we're doing all the time and not going, I wonder where we are this week. So the Wandering Jews of Brooklyn Heights. Okay, and anything that I said, don't trust me. Go to the website and double check whatever the website says. That's probably or the weekly announcement sheet, which is even more likely to be correct. Yes?
I
yes.
think they're both correct at this point.
Adon Olam, page 321.
אזי מלך שמה נקרא, אזי מלך שמה נקרא, ואחרי ככלות תכלות הכל, אזי ימלך חינוך נורא, והוא היה והוא הווה, והוא יהיה בתפארה, והוא יהיה בתפארה, והוא אחד ואין שני.
find Kiddush. Max, come on up. I think on page 4. Sounds about right to me. Max, bring your binder up with you, please.
ויהי ערב ויהי בוקר יום השישי, ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם, ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישבות ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה. ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. צברי חבריי.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei puri hagafen.
אמן.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishana b'mitzvotav v'ratzav anu, v'shabbat kodsho ba'ahava uvratzon hinhilanu, zikaron l'ma'azeh v'reishit, ki hu yom tehila l'mikra'e kodesh. זכר ליציאת מצרים, כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל חמים, בשבת קודשך באהבה ורצון הנהלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקחדש השבת. אמן.
So we're going to gather right by the back table for Kiddush, in which everyone on the Zoom, Shabbat Shalom.